and then turn it over to Preston.
Thanks, Uli.
Thank you.
All right, quick introduction to myself while I share. Okay, so I'm Preston Chilcote. My current role is Customer Success Specialist, specializing in Catalyst Center. My previous role for 15 years was in the TAC. So I cut my teeth there, meaning I come at this product very much from a troubleshooting perspective, but it does a lot more than that as well. And my area was mostly routing switching. So I've learned a lot about the wireless in the last 6 years, but that wasn't my specialty for troubleshooting. The Customer Success Specialist role, if you guys haven't worked with us before, it's a very nice medium between your salespeople telling you, hey, this product is going to do great things for you, and TAC telling you, hey, you had it deployed for 4 years, you made one change, it broke, let's help fix it. That deployment scenario where you have to go, you're expected to go through hundreds of pages of documentation. We are the people you should be talking to first, because I can distill that into here's the 10 things you need to know, here's the gotchas that customers have run into before, and try to speed that adoption. It's really helpful when you're learning a new technology to talk to somebody who's done it before, and that's what customer success is for. So today we're talking about Catalyst Center. I want to touch on, we only have an hour, and I'm going to talk really fast. Interrupt me for questions. If I think it's going to take more than a 2-minute discussion, I might kick it to the end. But I want to cover the 2 or 2.5 features that are really, really popular in Catalyst Center. Quick show of hands, have you guys at least logged into Catalyst Center before? Where are we starting from? Great. All right. So if you're familiar with this page, this, by the way, is a disclaimer. This is the dcloud instance. It's a pseudo Catalyst Center. It's not a real appliance. There's a talk track that I never follow. So sometimes I get myself in trouble trying to click through screens. If we can see a scrolling wheel of death, doesn't speak bad to the appliance. It just means we're kind of going off the rails for the presentation. But it's going to show us great things for assurance. Assurance for Catalyst Center, I think of it in 2 ways. There's a top-down and a bottom-up. Bottom-up meaning clients are complaining. What tier of my network is that potentially a problem? Is it just the client? Is it the whole floor? Is it the whole building, et cetera? Top-down says, let me look at, I'm going to go to assurance health, the overall health. Let me just see how my network is doing overall. And if there's a certain list of distributions, switches that are having issues, I can look into that, especially if this is new information. I can go to a specific site that's maybe got an event today and see if the people are getting online. So we were having trouble with that earlier today. So I can kind of be proactive here. Because everything gets boiled down to a health score. And health score is just a number, 0 through 10. 0 usually means, actually always means, we're just not getting any telemetry at all. And then you progress from there, 10 means you're golden. Everything in Catalyst Center gets a health score, but it's not always the same information. KPIs. So a wireless client will have very different KPIs than your core router. Core router is going to care about memory, CPU, WAN utilization, things like that. Signal strength. Client's going to be signal strength, onboarding, things that matter to a wireless client. But we get to distill that to a score from 1 to 10. And this page gets to show us what's the overall health of my wireless clients, my wired clients, my routers, my switches, et cetera. I can drill, all these things are very clickable. So I can drill down in here and see, okay, what's up with my access switches? And this demo doesn't like to do that. Okay, it's another view down here. So I can sort based on, so here's my access switches. Here's the first time we've seen a health score, and the breakdown says memory utilization is fine, link errors is fine. This is an artifact of the demo, the fact that it says the master health score is actually just a minimum of all the other health scores. So in reality, you'd have to see memory utilization being a problem to see a 2 there. But it is hoverable, so you can quickly see what's going on with these network devices. Maybe the more depending on your roles, but if you guys have frontline troubleshooting that needs to be done, the more exciting feature of Catalyst Center is the bottom up. So I have a client that's complaining. I did back in college a IT, like a desktop support, helping people with printers, and these people did not know what an IP address was, nor should they need to. But when you start troubleshooting, you might spend half an hour, especially if they're like remote. You've got to go find their client, find out what the MAC address, IP address is. They're not technical. So that alone might take half an hour and frustrate both parties. What we've done in Catalyst Center is be able to search for their username. If I spell it right. So we've got a user in this organization called Grace Smith. This information for the nerds in the room and the audience comes from the 802.1x authentication sessions. That means for wireless, the wireless controller has all that because it caches that stuff. For wired connections, first you need to use .1x, and second, you have to have your PX connection with ICE, because ICE is the one caching that. So we can do that lookup that way through ICE. But the wireless pretty much comes for free. You can see across the top, she's got 5 different devices. Here, this is where my TAC days would have loved something like this. We call this the time travel slider. We're showing by default the last day. We actually keep up to 30 days. So I can go back in and look, maybe I can look at a week up to 4 weeks ago, so I can look at the whole thing. And I'm seeing here a chart of her health score, of this device's health score over time. And if I double click, I can move this slider around and you'll see things below here. Everything changes for just this window. So very common problem in tech, and if you guys do any troubleshooting, is client reports a problem on Friday afternoon. They don't really say anything because we all know things kind of fix themselves over the weekend. Maybe it happens again 2 weeks later. By the time they talk to us, they're really frustrated because they've seen it 4 times. We're only getting a chance to see it now. It's intermittent. Oftentimes all you can do is check the basics. If you don't have the problem in front of you, how can you prove that you know the problem is? So you can kind of do a 10-point, 100-point inspection, whatever that the car's dealerships will give you. It's something akin to that. Cross your fingers, or in the worst case, maybe tell them, hey, I need you to see it again. I need you to collect this data. You know, they're not technical. They get frustrated, et cetera, et cetera. Here, we've seen this problem in the last month. We have some good information that Catalyst Center has cached and stored for us. So here are the health scores. Here's an example. In red, we have authentication types failed. So she failed an authentication for a couple hours, and then things went okay after that. We'll start to see the issues that Catalyst Center boils up. Catalyst Center does its best to deduplicate these issues. So if there's an issue for like a port flap, you're not going to see it 1,000 times. You're going to see one message here, and you see how this instance count is 3. It's the same problem over and over again. We'll report it as one issue and multiple instances. And then each time you can dig in here, it'll give you some troubleshooting steps. And sometimes, depending on the platform, you'll see a run command right here. So it'll actually, we have all the Catalyst Center has all the login credentials, so it can just run those commands for you. So it might say, look at the interface drops, and it'll have a run right there for you. 2 seconds on a service. There, you can also integrate with ServiceNow. And if you want us to want Catalyst Center to generate a ticket to ServiceNow, it can do that, and it will loop in all that information ahead of time. So you'll know the device, some of the show commands like show interfaces, whatever is relevant to that product. So that's a pretty popular integration with ServiceNow. Yes. It is part of it. It will sync from Catalyst Center to ServiceNow, but not the other way around. So this is, I'll tell you a real world story as I was showing this off to a customer. They had a relatively new floor. I think it was a law office in Sydney, Australia. And he was sitting in America somewhere. So troubleshooting is a little bit painful. We went to this onboarding topology, and you had, you know, the client, a bunch of clients actually we could see right from here, the client list, that there's 19 clients that were low health scores. But what we also saw right off the bat was that his AP had a 7, which is a medium health score. So we immediately said, yeah, it was one client that might be complaining, but what's going on with this AP? And then when we checked the floor, it turned out all all the APs had a health score of 7. So within 2 seconds, we completely ignored any kind of client level troubleshooting that we needed to do. And then we asked questions. And he said, yeah, this is a brand new site and we haven't talked to our neighbors, we're getting interference. There's an elsewhere in Catalyst Center that you can see the interference levels and rogue devices. So if you're seeing SSIDs from floors above or below, and that was new information to him. That was very helpful. Here is an event viewer. If you're seeing onboarding issues, you can look in here and it'll flag things in red for you if there was an issue with onboarding. So we knew, in this case, we're looking at an onboarding issue. We could look for some key exchange failures. This isn't quite equivalent. I know very common tactic when you're troubleshooting wireless is to go look at the ICE live logs. That's one of my favorite tools, part of ICE. That is soon going to be integrated also. So this is not the live logs, but we will start getting more detailed about, did the user use the wrong pre-shared key, for example, which I think is very powerful. We're looking at application experience here, so we might as well touch on it. I showed you quickly the overall health score of the network. Assuming you've got a baseline of, let's say, 95% healthy, oftentimes it's hard to get to 100 because you're always moving things in and out of the network. But if you're satisfied, once you see that 95% kind of statically over the week, you got a pretty good comfort with your networking infrastructure. And maybe your client health scores are in the 70 or 80% range, probably higher for wired, lower for wireless. At some point, you can start thinking about the application experience. Everything we've talked about so far, by the way, comes for free out of the box. It's configured for you when you discover a network device. Cisco or Catalyst Center will configure a few things for you, like SNMP, some NetFlow, NetConf, and syslogs, and then between that and just logging in and running show commands. That is the set of information that Catalyst Center is trying to absorb. We configure that stuff for you exactly so that you get this stuff immediately for free. Application experience is not on by default. There's 2 pieces to it. Application visibility, which tells you how much traffic has come in of each type. So how much WebEx, how much MS Teams, how much SNMP traffic is coming out of this site, which is interesting, solves some problems that you guys might have. But what's really interesting is what's the health of my MS Teams, my WebEx calls, because that's where the users might start complaining. Especially these days, they're on a conference call, on a video call, it's choppy. It's the application that they really care about. And we can turn on application experience, which is the qualitative data of latency, jitter, and delay that you're seeing here on the right side, to really give us those health scores of the client. So it's not necessarily about, how is my ping test, you can only tell so much from the client of the health of that stream. You really want to know the specific application. We also have in the application dashboard, I'll try to remember to show you, and now it ties with Thousand Eyes. Thousand Eyes gives you probes all around your network and the internet if you want, to really give you end-to-end information about how this client, or how specific applications, I should say, are behaving. And those are nice for things like, you have an important conference room like this one, maybe. If you could have a Thousand Eyes agent set up on a little Raspberry Pi, you would have a constant baseline. You'd always have a robot trying to get to the network, trying to connect. And then so you would know if this morning happens and I couldn't log on, maybe that could have been detected 2 days ago. And you have a history there, and with all the Thousand Eyes tests, having a sensor in the room is really valuable. And some of those dashboards get integrated into Catalyst Center, so you can see what tests are being run. But it also has quick launch links off to Thousand Eyes itself. And then the last bit of information is hidden in here. So even if you've seen this page, you might not have seen what I'm about to show you. So in the wireless GUIs, if you're troubleshooting wireless, there's lots of places that say, what's the signal strength? So you're troubleshooting a client, like let's say we're troubleshooting this guy. AP's in the ceiling, I'm having issues, and the APs are telling me what the signal is. But in reality, they're talking to each other up there. They don't know that there's a metal roof, or that I'm sitting underground under a table for some reason. So that communication was just a best guess. in this old state of the art. But now we have, for years now, we've had deals with Apple, with Samsung, with Intel. So those certain clients will tell us exactly what the device is seeing. So if you're supporting, especially if you're supporting a user that's in a different building, different city, you can't drive over there. If you want an accurate picture, you're supposed to take an identical device, sit exactly where they're sitting to try to detect, what the signal strength might be. And that's a lot of time for you guys. That's frustrating for them, disrupting their workflow. But if we can just pull that information right off the device, so we get to see this picture of this iPhone is seeing 5 different APs at these different signal strengths. If they're not selecting the right AP that we think they should, then we can see that. We can blame the driver more easily. And I think we get, in some cases, maybe Apple's not good about sharing drivers, but I think the Intel and Samsung might, certainly the Intel, we get more information about what drivers and start by updating those. So it's a little bit hidden in here, but it's really powerful when you are really having struggles with like one particular type of client. The iPhones or Samsung Galaxy hundreds, whatever they're up to now, they're seeing issues. That's something you could look for. So we started with these clients. Potentially, I said you could have let's see if it launched. Should be able to cross launch from here. Yeah, they buried that in this one. Oh, here, no, we didn't. I was reading it the other way. So now I've gone up the chain to the device 360 for a wireless controller. Everything Assurance has the same time travel slider. You'll see that it kept my time window. That's nice. And now I'm looking at telemetry. During that time, the WLC telemetry looks pretty good. So probably not the WLC issue. I have seen questions that make me chuckle of customers. They get so used to this. They say, why doesn't Catalyst Center just tell me exactly what wireless problem is in my network? That I've got a microwave being used at 12:30 after, every day. They really wanted it to kind of replace their job. The best way to think about it is Catalyst Center is sucking in all the information that it can. I mentioned syslog and netflow and show commands, integrations with Thousand Eyes, and these dashboards serve to harness that, so we as troubleshooters don't have to bounce between 6 different tools. We try to put as much in a friendly dashboard as we can, make it easy to look up and down the network stack, but we still need our networking knowledge to say, oh, that's off. Why is one client having a problem and not another? But at least all the information is there, so I don't need to log into 6 different tools. So we talked on application inner. Okay, one other thing that some people loop into assurance, which I think is reasonable. So this page is not something that comes on automatically. It is created. If you were to visit and no one's visited before, you'll see there's only one button basically. Say, do you want to enable AI network analytics? So we don't want to turn it on because we want you guys to accept the end user agreement that says we're going to send anonymized data to the Cisco cloud, churn it out on our own machine learning, and print some reports like these for you. And so by default, I'm looking here, access points and client counts. There's a bunch of other KPIs. If I'm interested in access points, there's lots of other things I can look at, but they all will have a similar format. And what I'm looking at here, I really like. I don't know what to call this type of chart, but I really like it because it's sorting. I can tell the density on it at a glance. The dark blue is super dense. It's sorted for me, and it tells me approximately. So this guy's got 63 clients, and they're all pretty even. Now, I had a real world scenario where I don't remember what the top client was, the number of clients, but we went all the way to the bottom, and they said, whoa, that's interesting. We have 4 APs that haven't had, in the last 30 days, have not had a client connected to it. It was in like a foyer of some remote lobby. And they're like, why don't we just move that one to where these client counts? So here we're seeing pretty even, that's a sign of a well-designed network. But in reality, you're going to have some that of 10 times more than the others. And if you have an AP that's not even being used and you can move it into an area, a more denser area, then that's a free win. You don't have to buy any new hardware. So that's really easy from a quick view. I don't want to show any of the others. Interference maybe as an example. So I just really like how to read this. And yes, I can do it just based on certain sites as part of my hierarchy. Almost everything, I can't think of any exceptions at the moment. You can filter based on a site. And it's also this one. So imagine you've got 100, I don't know, it doesn't, I mean, a lot of conference rooms, a lot of parts of the network, it would take a tremendous amount of manpower to watch it every day and say like, wait a minute, I thought that this particular room was usually only has 5 APs, now it has 50, what's going on? You can't do that. No human can do that across all their networks, but a computer is really good at that. So we have, as part of AI network analytics, we will consume about 3 weeks of information and create these baselines. How much does this AP usually have? And if it deviates, you just saw that it reports a deviation, and it'll show you 4 weeks ago we had 43 clients, and that was about right. And then it dipped down to half of that. What's up with that? So as you're kind of, if it's a new network and or things are in flux, or you've got a certain site that's really important for the next week, using these AI tools that have already been tracking, maybe 4 months ago or 4 weeks ago, you didn't know that you were going to need to worry about it, but Catalyst Center has been tracking it for you automatically. So you can do a quick check if there's any trends and deviations that you want to look for.
Question. Did you get to the testings question?
I did not see it. No.
Did you say that the expert connection is required to set up between Catalyst Center and our ICE radius server and for the assurance feature to operate? Can you tell me where in Catalyst configure if the expert would show the expert connection is already?
Great question. Let's see. This is a sudo. So here is where you would see just if it's connected already. A PX grid ICE connection is really helpful for assurance. It's not required. I mentioned specifically for assurance, it gives us the information of usernames. So I can type in a username, a wired username, to Catalyst Center in the search box. It knows from ICE where that guy or girl is connected. It also, even outside of assurance, has a couple of benefits. One is when you discover a device in Catalyst Center, it can make an API call to ICE to create a network address, network device entry, whatever they would call that one. So just saves a few clicks of admin inside ICE. It also has some integrations for SDA. It's really important there because you're managing your SGTs and your SGACLs there. And then there's also some endpoints. So ICE has a whole library, and it's building out quickly, of endpoint profiling to be able to give you reports to say, I've got this many Macs, this many PCs, this many sensors, this many AV equipment. But identifying just based on a MAC address or traffic patterns, it's not always trivial. So ICE has a bunch of tools like that. Catalyst Center also has some tools like that, and those pieces can share their knowledge if you've got that ICE integration. So there's an endpoint tool. Doesn't show. How do I get to the chat here?
She said it doesn't show if PX grid is being used in this information.
If PX grid wasn't, if ICE wasn't connected, then this section would be blank. And SXP, I saw her reference that. That's something different for SDA and sharing of SGTs. So that's outside the scope of this one. You need to got half an hour back. Jess, if you want to save some questions for the end, we can get back to those if we got some time. She's good. All right. Now, any quick questions on assurance? I know it's fast. Sorry about that. Yeah. Only info blocks and Blue Cat. We usually see it, and maybe almost exclusively, that's where I'm hesitating for when you're doing SDA. Because SDA, those IP pools become really important, so your IPAM becomes really important. Other than that, I don't know if it has a purpose. Now I want to cover the other feature. I change my mind every other week of which feature is more popular, but software image management is definitely up there. So I have been working with Cisco gear for 21 years now, especially in TAC, lots and lots of cases. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You share some of the area. Two, vulnerabilities. I'm not sure that's part of this or not. I'll make sure that we're best look at the.
Okay. The first one, I can't say too much. We're being promised some tools that will kind of unify things. Remains to be seen how those get prioritized. So I definitely can't promise anything. Better question for your sales team on that one. The vulnerabilities is a great question, and let me get to that as it'll tie into our swim. So I love that question. Okay, so I started to say I had a lot of experience getting customers to upgrade. It's easy to say when you're sitting in a TAC chair. When you're actually in the field and you have maintenance windows and schedules, and of course you've got other projects always, if not more than one, going on at the same time. Upgrading equipment, when I tell you to upgrade or recommend as a Cisco person to upgrade the switch, I may not realize that you've got 600 of these things or more, and you're the one that has to spend a Friday night over the course of 6 months to do these upgrades. So it's quite a painful process. I'm told, never tried it, but Cisco Prime had a tool to do some upgrades. I don't know if I've seen any customers that really swore by it. So whatever Catalyst Center is doing differently than Prime did is a home run, because we now have, Catalyst Center knows your inventory. These product families here, this is based on just what's in your inventory. So if you don't have any 8300 routers, I don't need to see images for that. I'm only gonna see stuff that's relevant for the inventory. Let me go to drill down on 9300s here. If I put in a CCO account, I can, or Catalyst Center will pull automatically some metadata of what's available out there in the cloud. Maybe a release got published a week ago. I might not find it on the first day, but within a week, it'll be there. So I'm seeing metadata, and that's important. So I'm not downloading all the images yet to Catalyst Center. That would be a waste of space. Just seeing what's out there. And I should see some tags here. Here's the latest versions got tagged. There will be some in the real world, and not just this demo. There'll be suggested releases. So when you're on Cisco.com downloading software, there's gold stars, which are quite helpful if you don't have time to really dig into the release notes of every image. Just pick a gold star, because that's what Cisco has essentially blessed. If you just need a generally new and stable version, go with the gold star. That will get reflected in here as well. And if I decide that 17.15.2 is going to be my golden image that I want all the 9300s in my network to run, I'll click this star. That starts the process of downloading the image from Cisco.com to Catalyst Center. And then I'll show you the next step will be how to schedule the actual distribution and activation on the device. But I'm not, we're just dealing with this question internally with some customer. What if some of my 9300s want to run one version, some or another? I might have multiple IT teams sharing this tool and they have their own standards. That can be achieved through tagging. So in the inventory, you have the option, might as well show it. We're going to go off to inventory anyway. So any arbitrary device, I can tag with whatever tag I want. And there's a few things. Yeah, tagging is disabled in this demo, sorry. But if I click that tag, it'll give me a drop down of all the existing tags. Let me choose a new tag. So I can create a tag that says 9300s for company X or 9300s for division Y. And then I can use those tags in other places in Catalyst Center, including software management. So I can have 17.15.2 go to company or division X, and 17.15.3 go to division Y, and separate them that way. Another trick in inventory, about as long as I'm here, because it's a little confusing. We have, think of the potentially thousands of devices in Catalyst Center. We have so much information about each of those devices. Putting them in one huge table would just mean scrolling and scrolling and scrolling forever. So instead, we change these we have these focuses, and by default, it's giving us very minimal information about each device. But if I am worried about software images, for example, I'm going to keep the same, it's always the same number of rows, same list, but my columns have all changed. Now they're specific to the software. Oops. So that's what this focus is. Software image is common, inventory is common, to see if you want all your devices to be managed, reachable. Maybe we'll talk about EOX and compliance in a second. So how do I actually kick off this? There we go. Okay, so all these devices are up to date, up to date. So here's an example of one that needs an update. Now, the other thing that we, in tech, if we're trying to, and well, it applies maybe more to customers, if you want to do an upgrade by the book, there is a checklist of, is my config register okay? Do I have enough memory on the next release? Do I have enough flash on the current release? I was actually on the team that a tech case would get sent to if an upgrade failed, and they happen every day. Because if you're upgrading 100 or 1,000 devices, maybe 2 of them you forget to check a config register, and you wonder how the heck it even got checked. So it's really easy to skip past and just assume it's going to work. We have routinely customers on like oil derricks that if they screw up an upgrade, they've got to fly a helicopter out to go meet it. So sometimes it's more important than, because you can't just walk down the hall. I say all this because Catalyst Center does all those checks for us. So our image readiness check, you can see on the screen the types of things it's going to check. It removes any possibility of, at least the basics of these upgrades go wrong. So that's reason number 1, probably why Catalyst Center is really popular. The other thing to note, I've gone through myself the progression of usually using TFTP and then usually using SCP, which is just SSH. And then now once I learned HTTP is so much faster, I'm happy that Catalyst Center can use either one, HTTP or SCP. It will test both, but it'll prefer HTTP and fall back to SCP transfers. So it's, not only is it kind of automated, but it's just a faster transfer as well. So this is the pre-checks. It actually won't let you upgrade if the screen checkbox is wrong. I hope that, I can't remember if I've done a swim. So you can do some custom checks for pre-checks and post-checks, more of an advanced topic. We don't see that too often. This is the meat and potatoes of swim. So swim is 2 pieces. First, I got to get the image onto the device. That is should be, unless you have a really slow speed link and are worried about filling it up, that should be really low risk. You can do it during the daytime working hours. The activation is when we actually do the reload, and you can schedule each of those independently. So the distribution, I can say schedule that for right now, and then but the distribution I want to keep for Friday night or Saturday morning, whatever. Or I can also do it immediately after distribution. That's what this is saying. So for a lab, that's what we end up doing mostly. But it's very nice once you get comfortable with the swim process to be able to just schedule that automatically over the weekend and pick up a report on Monday morning and see how things went. So that's how simple SWIM is. This ties in very nicely with so one of the vulnerabilities you're talking about types is security advisories. So when I first started at Cisco, a PCERT could come out any random time. We published them as fast as we could, trying to be good citizens, until customers said, hold on here, we can't keep up. And when we tested this first version to upgrade to try to be good citizens, and then next week, without any announcement, you say, here's another PCERT. Why don't we just bundle them together so that we can have a recurring task, know when they're coming, make them predictable. So now we publish, I haven't looked in a while, so maybe it's 50 PCERTs every 6 months, but those across all of Cisco's product lines. And we expect customers to go find the ones that might be relevant to their product and then drill in, is it relevant to the software? And that's still kind of a tall order. We've definitely improved the process, but it's a lot of customers, has no surprise, just ignore it. The advantage of Catalyst Center, now that we have something that knows all of our devices, it can go through the list of PCERTs and extract the ones that are for the hardware that we care about. So immediately, hopefully, 50 becomes 3 or something, and you only have to look at a smaller number. That's what this tool is telling us. So this particular device, I can either say for all the current PCERTs, how many devices in my network are problematic, which if you have a specific PCERT that someone's warned you about, and that's what the angle you want to attack that one with. We can also say, I think that's what the view here is, for all my devices, which ones have a lot of PCERTs. So if you had old software on it, you might see 5 or 6 advisories. What's missing here out of the box is if it's a BGP vulnerability, and these are access switches that don't have BGP, you will, out of the box, you will still see that error. With CX Cloud integration, we take care of that. So it'll check the software and the version, and you can be pretty darn sure that if Catalyst Center and CX Cloud agree that it's a PCERT, that it's actually vulnerable. There, let's see if I can find that page. So there is, if you don't have CX Cloud, you can do a quick match pattern and say, look for BGP in the config, and if it's not there, don't report this. So you can sort of manually do this. This was really important. A couple of years ago, there was an HTTP vulnerability, and a lot of customers wanted to know which of my devices have HTTP on them. And so they just add a quick match pattern, quick regex to do that. So you can come to this page and see this live, but in reality, a more useful workflow is probably through reports. I'm getting really far into off the script here. So let's see how far it lets me get. So reports were a very popular feature in Prime. Lets me schedule things to send to an email. You use probably most often. You can also send to texts or like WebEx rooms, IM clients if you want. And I'll get to you in a second. So we have almost full parity with all the reports that were in Prime. Security advisory report will look like this, and you can schedule it. It's not going to work on this one. Most reports you can do the least frequently is weekly, but for security advisory, I don't really need a weekly report. I can do it monthly, and I think by now maybe quarterly. So if once a quarter I can have Catalyst Center tell me the vulnerabilities that are in my network, then that's pretty valuable. I don't have to log in. I can forget it. I can forget that Catalyst Center can even do security advisories. It just comes to me in my inbox once a quarter. And hopefully maybe not send it to just you, but send it to the networking team so everybody gets to see it and come up with an action plan. Question?
Or getting the technical to of the whole user and like just see something like that.
Yeah, the observer role. Yeah.
change.
Yes, so that's called role-based access control. And that-
Some people.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, good point. He asked if there is the ability for him as a manager to just log in to see what's going on. Maybe he doesn't want to accidentally configure anything, but he wants to be able to see these kind of reports. There's the assurance, and there is actually a built-in observer role that'd be the first. Might not even need to tweak it yourself, but you can create a new role. This demo might not let me do it. But nope. So yes, you can. It'll give you very, very good granularity about which pages you're allowed to access. And then one of the most demanded features of Catalyst Center over the last 4 years has been site-based role-based access control. Because some networks want, they have a networking team that owns this group of buildings, another in that group of buildings. They'd love to have just one appliance and work together. So now we will soon have that. I think it's coming in 3.1, which is going to be out by the end of the year. So you can even further granularize the site-based role-based access control. No, 3.1 coming soon. Yeah. I mean, if you really, really needed it, you might be able to get your hands on it. No. So there is, where is it? So you asked about vulnerabilities. This is, there is some extra, I mentioned CX Cloud, that integration helps with pcerts. CX Cloud also has this repository of TAC knowledge, basically, that's been in a script. So when TAC, it makes a lot of sense, right? I was actually helped on this project that if we get a show TAC and we know that a bug on this version just needs this line of config, or if you see this error message, that means you're running to that bug. Why not just write a script to tell it automatically? And so TAC has those tools. Those kinds of knowledge nuggets get scooped up by CX Cloud, and CX Cloud can report. So not just pcerts, but also really severe bugs. It's been a while since I looked. I don't think we can see that view in Catalyst Center. So you have to see that through CX Cloud. But we do have these network reasoner tools that are a little similar. I think there is I thought there was one just for HTTP. So these are very similar concepts of, hey, we handled now thousands of Catalyst Center cases, and this is tech world and engineering. It's like, we'd really love to be able to give our knowledge to customers before they have to open a tech case. That's the idea here of network reasoner. And this actually just came up in real world. I think it was Lisp. Yeah, a customer was complaining, had problems with their SDA fabric. It's clearly something, I remember, it was a jumbo MTU they hadn't configured in their underlay. Something that should be automatable. They didn't know to look here to run these fabric network reasoners. If they had, they would have found the problem immediately. So those little things that are really obvious once you know them, but you're new to SDA, you're new to Catalyst Center, it's not, nobody's blaming you for not knowing these things. This is where we try to embed that tribal knowledge from TAC and engineering into the product. I'm trying to get these pushed to just become automatic, because if you don't know where to look here, then it can be easy to skip. But this MTU link check would have found that problem off the bat. All right. So they're similar to pcerts, and so that's also CX Cloud. Now we have some time to talk about. Yeah, I'll stop in 4 minutes and make it super informal. So the last topic I think I'll cover is just this EOX status. So very nice to know, as a lot of customers discover, especially if this is the first time they've had all their infrastructure in one place, in one dashboard, just to know what's old, what's out there. Constantly surprised about different devices that got thrown into a network years ago in a building that everyone forgot about. And so this EOX end of life status is tracking not just hardware. So sorry, it's the demo fail. It tracks hardware and software. So if it's on a really old software release that went end of life, we'll report that. If one component, so just one module inside your device is end of life, end of support, then it'll report on that too. So having that all in one place. Oh, there is, I'll use my last 2 minutes on. So along those same lines, if the goal of the network, and oftentimes a great way to get started with Catalyst Center, is just to make things the same. So it makes it easier for you to maintain and operate. If it's mostly the same hardware, all the same software, just makes your life easier, but you need the tools to do that in a large network. One of the tools for that, let me start quickly, but I didn't know if I was going to have time to do that, is this compliance. So compliance means a lot of things. Is my software up to date? Do I have any P-certs on there? Is there anything end of life, end of support? So Catalyst Center can check all that for us. It actually can also check some of the config. I don't have time to go into that in super detail, but it can report if your config is out of whack too, which happens a lot if somebody's manually troubleshooting and frantically doing manual commands. But yet, if Catalyst Center is supposed to be in charge of those configs, it can report that discrepancy. And this is another thing that you can report on once a month or something. What are all the devices that are non-compliant? And there's a column, one for software, one for config, one for is just the startup and running config. Do they match? That's something easy to forget and disastrous potentially when you do forget. So having all those, again, I got here through the inventory in the compliance column. That's what all that compliance is for. Okay, I covered everything and more that I wanted to. Let's take 30 seconds. You guys can get some food, and if there's any questions online, you can type them out, and we'll come back in a few. How do I get to the questions here?
That's it. Mike, do you have any additional questions, or did you want to wrap up, or did you have
Yeah,
something?
no, just to wrap up for those online, if there's anything that you want more follow-up, reach out to your sales team or your CX team, and you can talk to customer success anytime you want. That's what we're here for. We're the folks that know, we've gone through this before, so we don't want you bashing your head on the desk as you struggle to deploy these products. We're here to help you. So reach out and use us. And thanks for your time.
Preston, thank you so much for your time and putting this presentation together. Thank you, Jess. That concludes the session. I do also want to thank Franchise Tax Board for hosting us. So thank you, Diane, very much for putting this together. And yeah, that concludes the session. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.